Have you ever noticed something strange? One negative comment can ruin your entire day, but 10 compliments somehow disappear within minutes. Someone tells you that you look great. Your boss appreciates your work. Your friends laugh at your jokes. Everything seems fine. Until one person says something slightly critical, and suddenly, that's the only thing your brain can think about. You replay it while driving home. You think about it while taking a shower. Sometimes, you even remember it years later. Why? Why does the human mind hold on to pain so tightly, while happiness slips away so easily? Most people believe it's because they're pessimistic. Others think they simply worry too much. But psychology tells a completely different story. The truth is, your brain isn't trying to make you miserable. It's trying to keep you alive. To understand why, we need to travel back nearly 100,000 years. Imagine waking up in a world with no houses, no hospitals, no police, no supermarkets. Every single day could be your last. A strange sound behind a bush could mean a hungry predator. One wrong decision could end your life forever. Now imagine two different people. The first one hears a noise and says, "It's probably nothing." The second person immediately thinks, "What if it's dangerous?" Who survives longer? Almost always the second person, over thousands of generations. Nature rewarded brains that noticed danger before comfort. Not because they were happier, but because they stayed alive long enough to have children. Slowly, generation after generation, the human brain became wired to scan for problems before peace. That ancient survival system still lives inside your head today. The problem is, the world changed much faster than your brain did. You're probably not hiding from wild animals anymore. Instead, you're worrying about emails, money, relationships, social media, your future, your health, or what someone secretly thinks about you. The danger changed, but your brain didn't. To your nervous system, a painful rejection, a public embarrassment, or losing your job can trigger many of the same survival circuits that once protected your ancestors from real physical threats. That's why your heart races before an interview. That's why your stomach feels tight before difficult conversations. That's why one embarrassing memory can suddenly appear while you're trying to fall asleep. Your brain isn't broken. It's following ancient instructions. And here's something even stranger. Your brain doesn't actually care if your thoughts are true. It only cares whether they might keep you safe. Think about that for a second. If your mind imagines a worst-case scenario and nothing bad happens, your brain quietly believes it did its job. If I worried enough, maybe I prevented something terrible. But when everything goes well, your brain doesn't celebrate for very long because survival doesn't reward relaxation. It rewards preparation. Psychologists call this the negativity bias. It's one of the strongest psychological tendencies ever discovered. Researchers have repeatedly found that negative experiences leave a deeper psychological imprint than positive ones. Bad memories are stored more easily. Threats receive more attention. Mistakes stay in your memory longer than success. This isn't because life is mostly negative. It's because your brain believes negative information is more valuable for survival. Imagine walking into a room filled with 100 smiling people. 99 smile at you warmly. One person gives you an angry look. Hours later, which face are you still thinking about? Probably the angry one. Not because it mattered more, but because your brain decided it might. And once your brain labels something as a possible threat, it keeps bringing it back into your attention, again and again and again. But here's the question that changes everything. If your brain naturally focuses on negative thoughts, can you ever escape that cycle? The answer might surprise you, because modern neuroscience has discovered something about the human brain that previous generations never knew. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your own thoughts the same way again. So, if your brain is naturally wired to focus on danger, does that mean you're trapped with negative thinking forever? Not at all. But first, you need to understand something most people never realize. Your brain has two completely different jobs. The first job is to help you enjoy life. The second job is to keep you alive. And if those two goals ever compete, your brain will choose survival every single time. Think about your phone for a moment. It constantly checks for viruses, suspicious apps, and security risks. Not because it expects every file to be dangerous, but because missing one dangerous file could cause serious damage. Your brain works in a surprisingly similar way. Every day. It scans your environment looking for possible threats. Most of those threats aren't physical anymore. They're emotional. A strange text message, someone speaking in a different tone, an unanswered email, a small mistake at work, a single awkward conversation. Your brain immediately starts asking questions. What if they're angry? What if I embarrassed myself? What if I fail? Notice something? None of these are facts. They're possibilities, but your brain treats possibilities like warnings. That's why overthinking feels so convincing. Your mind isn't trying to predict the future. It's trying to prepare you for every possible outcome. Unfortunately, it rarely stops at the most likely outcome. Instead, it jumps straight to the worst one. Psychologists call this catastrophizing. It's when the brain automatically imagines the most negative future, even when the evidence doesn't support it. Imagine your manager says, "Can we talk tomorrow?" That's all they say. No explanation, no details. Within minutes, your brain has already created an entire movie. I'm getting fired. I'll lose my income. I'll disappoint my family. My future is over. The next day, your manager simply asks if you're available for a new project. Nothing terrible happened, but your body still experienced hours of real stress. That's because your brain reacts to imagined danger almost the same way it reacts to real danger. Your heart beats faster, stress hormones rise, your muscles tighten, sleep becomes difficult, all because of a story your mind invented. Now here's something fascinating. Researchers have found that a large percentage of the things people worry about never actually happen. Think about your own life. How many sleepless nights were spent worrying about situations that disappeared on their own? How many conversations played out perfectly after your brain predicted disaster? How many fears quietly faded away without becoming reality? Probably more than you realize. Yet every imagined threat leaves behind real emotional exhaustion. That's the hidden cost of negative thinking. Not because the future is dangerous, but because your brain believes preparation is always better than surprise. There's another psychological pattern that's just as powerful. It's called confirmation bias. Once your brain believes something, it starts looking for evidence that proves it's right. Imagine someone secretly believes, "I'm not good enough." Without realizing it, their brain begins filtering reality. One compliment, ignored. One criticism, remembered forever. One success, called luck. One mistake, seen as proof they were right all along. The brain quietly builds a world that matches its expectations. Not because it's trying to lie, but because consistency feels safer than uncertainty. In other words, your thoughts influence what you notice, and what you notice strengthens your thoughts. It's a loop. The longer it continues, the stronger it becomes. But here's the amazing part. The brain isn't made of concrete. It's made to change. Every experience, every habit, every repeated thought slowly reshapes the pathways inside your mind. This ability is known as neuroplasticity. It's one of the greatest discoveries in modern neuroscience. It means your brain isn't permanently programmed, it's constantly adapting. Every time you interrupt a negative thought, every time you question an anxious prediction, every time you choose evidence instead of fear, you're strengthening new mental pathways. At first, the change feels small, almost invisible. But just like a path through a forest, the route you walk most often becomes the easiest one to follow. Your thoughts work exactly the same way. The question isn't whether negative thoughts will appear. They always will. The real question is, which thoughts will you practice believing? Because whatever your brain practices eventually becomes its default. And that's where everything begins to change. So, if your brain naturally creates negative thoughts, what are you actually supposed to do? The answer isn't to stop thinking negatively. That sounds impossible because it is. Even the happiest people in the world experience fear, doubt, anxiety, and moments of insecurity. The difference isn't the absence of negative thoughts. It's the way they respond to them. Imagine you're sitting beside a busy highway. Thousands of cars pass by every hour. Some are beautiful. Some are old. Some are loud. But you don't chase every single car. You simply watch them pass. Your thoughts work the same way. Every thought that enters your mind is not an instruction. It's not a prediction. And it certainly isn't reality. It's simply mental activity. The moment you understand that, everything begins to change. Psychologists often describe this as creating distance between yourself and your thoughts. Instead of saying, "I'm going to fail," try saying, "I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail." It sounds like a tiny difference, but your brain experiences it very differently. The first statement feels like a fact. The second reminds your mind that it's only a thought. That small shift creates psychological space, and inside that space, you gain something incredibly powerful: choice. Here's another exercise used by many psychologists. Whenever your brain predicts something terrible, pause for a moment, then ask yourself 3 simple questions. First, what evidence actually supports this thought? Second, what evidence goes against it? And finally, if my best friend believed this, what would I honestly tell them? Something interesting usually happens. Your brain slows down. Emotion becomes quieter. Logic finally gets a chance to speak. Another powerful habit is keeping a record of your worries. Write them down. Then come back a week later. Ask yourself, how many of these fears actually came true? Most people are shocked by the answer. The majority never happened, yet they spent days, sometimes weeks, living as if they already had. That's one of the greatest tricks your brain plays. It confuses possibility with probability. Just because something could happen doesn't mean it's likely to happen. Think about how many times you've worried before a presentation. Then imagine how many presentations ended far better than your brain predicted. Your mind remembers the fear, but often forgets the outcome. That's why it's so important to remind yourself of reality, not just imagination. There's another habit that slowly changes the brain: gratitude. Not because it's magical, not because it solves every problem, but because it forces your attention to notice information your survival brain normally ignores. Every evening, ask yourself one simple question: what are 3 good things that happened today? At first, your brain might struggle. It will say, nothing. Keep looking. Maybe someone smiled at you. Maybe your coffee tasted great. Maybe you finished something you'd been avoiding. Small moments matter, because every time you notice them, you're teaching your brain that safety exists too. Remember, your brain evolved in a dangerous world. It doesn't naturally search for peace. You have to teach it where peace can be found, and that takes practice, not perfection. Some days you'll overthink. Some days anxiety will win. Some days your mind will convince you that everything is falling apart. That's part of being human. Don't judge yourself for it. Notice it. Understand it. Then gently return your attention to reality. Because the goal isn't to eliminate fear. The goal is to stop letting fear become your identity. Your brain has protected your ancestors for thousands of years. It deserves your respect, but it doesn't deserve complete control over your life. The next time a negative thought appears, don't ask, "Why is my brain doing this to me?" Instead, ask, "What is my brain trying to protect me from?" That single question changes everything, because it transforms your mind from an enemy into a partner. And once you understand how your brain truly works, you stop fighting yourself. You start working with yourself. That's where real confidence begins, not from having perfect thoughts, but from knowing that no thought, no matter how frightening, gets to decide who you are. If this video changed the way you think about your own mind, take a moment to leave a comment. What's one negative thought you finally realized isn't actually a fact? And if someone you care about constantly struggles with overthinking, share this video with them. It might help them understand that their brain isn't broken. It's simply doing the job it evolved to do. Until next time, stay curious.